The chilling house, a nightmare come to life. Some nightmares end when you wake up. Others begin the moment you step inside. Tonight's story is about a house that should have been abandoned. A place where time doesn't work the way it should, and a man who barely made it out alive. The house at the edge of town. Ethan had just moved to a new city for work. It wasn't much, just a small town in the middle of nowhere. Quiet, peaceful. At least, that's what he thought. One night, he was driving home from a late shift. The streets were empty, the houses were dark, and then he saw it. A house at the end of the street. Tall, old, wrong. The thing was, he had never seen it before. It was just there, like it had been waiting for him. And the porch light, it was on. The open door. Ethan slowed down. Something about the house felt off, but the longer he stared, the more he felt drawn to it, like something was pulling him closer. The front door was open, just slightly, like it was inviting him inside. And then a shadow moved behind the curtains. Ethan's pulse spiked. Someone was inside. Someone was watching him. And then the door creaked open wider. The silent house. Ethan wasn't the type to go exploring abandoned places. But this didn't feel like an abandoned house. It felt alive, like it was breathing, like it was expecting him. He stepped inside. The air was thick, heavy, wrong. Dust covered the floors, but there were footprints leading up the stairs, and then the door slammed shut behind him. The portraits that watched. The house was dead silent, no creaking floors, no ticking clocks, but Ethan could feel it. Something was here. The hallway was lined with old portraits, each one showing a different person. All of them wearing the same expression. Not quite a smile, not quite fear, just frozen. But the more he looked, the more he noticed their eyes were following him. And then one of the portraits fell off the wall. The upstairs footsteps, a loud thud echoed from upstairs. Ethan's breath caught. Someone else was in the house. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming down the hallway above him. Ethan backed away. The portrait seemed to shift as he moved, turning toward him. Then, the sound stopped. Silence, and a voice. "Why did you come here?" The door that led nowhere. Ethan turned, but there was no one there. The voice had come from everywhere at once. And then, the floor groaned beneath him. The house was shifting. He spun, trying to find the front door, but the hallway was longer than before. The rooms had changed. The house was trapping him. And at the end of the hall, a door, slightly open, light spilling through the crack. Something was waiting inside. The room that shouldn't exist. Ethan swallowed hard. He should have run, but something pushed him forward. He reached for the door, pushed it open, and then he saw it. His own bedroom, inside the house, same bed, same desk, same framed photo of his mother on the nightstand, like it had been copied, like the house knew him. Ethan stepped inside, and behind him, the door vanished. The man in the mirror. Ethan turned, his heart pounding. There was a mirror in the corner, and in the mirror, someone was standing behind him. Tall, still, a shadow of himself. But its mouth was stretched too wide, its eyes were too dark, and it whispered, "You don't belong here." Ethan whipped around. Nothing was there. But when he turned back to the mirror, the reflection was closer. And then, it reached through the glass. The escape that wasn't. Ethan bolted for the door. The room was warping around him, the walls breathing, the whispers growing louder. "Stay, stay, stay." He ran through the doorway, and suddenly he was outside, gasping for air, his car right where he left it. The house was gone. Just trees, like it had never been there. The final warning. Ethan never found that street again. No one else ever saw the house. No records, no history. But sometimes, when he looks in a mirror, he sees something standing behind him. And when he turns around, nothing is there. What's the truth? Some houses shouldn't exist. Some places trap you in ways you can't escape. And some nightmares, they don't end when you wake up. So if you ever see a house that wasn't there before, keep driving. Because if you go inside, you might never leave. That's tonight's story. If you've ever felt like a place was watching you, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying stories. Until next time, sleep well. The Haunted Hotel, what they don't want you to know. Some places hold on to memories, some places refuse to be forgotten, and some places never let their guests leave. Tonight's story is about a hotel with no history, a room that doesn't exist, and a guest who checked in but never checked out. The hotel that wasn't there. Jake had been driving for hours. The highway stretched for miles, endless and empty. It was supposed to be a quick trip, just a few hours to visit his brother in another state. But somewhere along the way, he had taken a wrong turn. The road signs made no sense. His GPS stopped working. And then, the storm hit. The rain came down in sheets, his headlights barely cutting through the darkness. That's when he saw it. A hotel. Old. Grand. A massive Gothic-style building standing alone at the edge of the woods. Its neon sign flickered. Blackwood Inn. Jake had never heard of it before, but at that moment he didn't care. He just needed a place to sleep. Room 306. The lobby was empty. No other guests, no noise, just a single old man behind the counter. His eyes were too dark, his smile was too wide. Jake shivered as the man slid a rusty key across the desk. Room 306, the man said. Jake nodded, paid in cash. Then the man leaned forward, his voice dropped to a whisper. Don't leave your room after midnight. The whispering walls. Jake's room was simple, outdated. The carpet smelled old, the wallpaper was peeling, but at least it was warm. He threw his bag on the bed, locked the door, and collapsed onto the mattress. Then, the whispering started, soft, muffled, coming from the walls. Jake sat up, heart pounding. He pressed his ear against the wall. Voices, too many of them, all whispering the same thing. Get out, get out, get out. The hallway that shouldn't exist. Jake tried to ignore it. Told himself it was just the wind. But then, at exactly midnight, his door unlocked. The sound was soft but clear. Click. Jake froze. He hadn't touched the door. Then, the handle turned. Slowly. Something was on the other side. The shadow in the hall. Jake grabbed his phone, his heart slamming in his chest. The door creaked open. The hallway was dark. Empty. Or at least, it should have been. Jake stepped forward, and the hallway was different. Longer. The walls were stretching. The doors, endless, and at the far end, a figure, standing still, watching. Jake's breath caught, then it moved. Fast. Too fast. Straight toward him. The room that didn't exist. Jake slammed the door shut, locked it, stepped back, his pulse racing. But then he saw it. The room number. It wasn't 306. The plaque on the door was different, faded, old. And it read, Room 00. Jake's stomach dropped. He hadn't left his room, but he wasn't in it anymore. The mirror that lied, Jake turned, and his reflection wasn't right. The mirror above the dresser showed someone else, not him. Same clothes, same face, but the eyes were wrong. Dark, empty. And then, it smiled. Jake didn't. The reflection tilted its head and whispered, It's your turn. The escape that wasn't Jake grabbed his bag, yanked open the door, and ran. The hallway was twisting, endless. Doors opened on their own, and from inside, screaming, a woman's voice, a child crying, and then, Jake saw it, the lobby. He sprinted toward it. The old man was still behind the desk, smiling. Leaving so soon? The man asked. Jake didn't answer. He threw the key on the counter and ran for the exit. But when he stepped outside, he wasn't outside. He was back in the hallway, standing in front of room 306. The final warning. Jake doesn't remember how he got out. All he remembers is waking up in his car, parked on the side of the highway. The hotel? Gone. No building, no sign, no proof it ever existed. But in his pocket, a rusty key with a faded tag, room near 0. Some places don't let go. Jake tried to find the hotel again, asked the locals. No one had ever heard of it. No one had seen it. But late at night, when he closes his eyes, he still hears the whispering. And sometimes he wakes up to find his hotel door unlocked, even though he never left it open. What's the truth? Some places shouldn't exist. Some hotels don't just take guests, they keep them. So if you ever find yourself lost on the highway and you see a hotel that wasn't there before, keep driving, because if you check in, you might never check out. What do you think? Have you ever stayed somewhere that felt wrong? Have you ever seen a hotel that shouldn't be there? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying stories. Until next time, sleep well. terrifying hotel, the creepiest encounter ever. Some places hide secrets. Some places are never truly empty, and some places were never meant to be found. Tonight's story is about a hotel that appears out of nowhere, a room that shouldn't exist, and a guest who was never supposed to check in. A wrong turn into the unknown. Brian had been driving all night, a long road trip, miles of empty highway stretching in every direction. He wasn't planning to stop, but exhaustion hit him hard. His GPS stopped working. His phone battery was dying. And then, through the darkness, he saw a hotel. It was old but elegant, like something from another era. The neon sign flickered, the Black Hollow Inn. Brian had never heard of it before, but at that moment, he didn't care. He just needed a bed for the night. The lobby with no guests. The lobby was eerily silent. There was no one at the front desk, no other guests, no sound at all except for the ticking of an old grandfather clock. Then, a bell rang. A man appeared from the shadows, dressed in an old-fashioned uniform. His smile was too wide, his eyes were too dark. "Welcome," the man said. "Checking in?" Brian hesitated, but then nodded. The man handed him a key, room 217, and then he added, "Stay inside your room after midnight." A room that felt wrong. Brian climbed the stairs, feeling a strange heaviness in the air. Room 217 was simple, yet old-fashioned. A large bed, a dresser, a mirror above the desk. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing. The bathroom door had a chain lock on the outside, like someone had been locked in from the outside. Brian shook off the unease. He locked the main door and got into bed. But as soon as he turned off the light, the whispers started. The voices from the walls. It was faint at first. Muffled voices, like people talking behind the walls. Then, scratching, light, then harder, then 3 knocks, slow, deliberate, coming from the bathroom. Brian sat up, heart pounding, and then a voice, soft, female. "Let me out." The locked door that opened itself. Brian stared at the bathroom door. It was still locked, but the handle was turning, slowly. Then, the chain snapped open, the door creaked open, and for a split second he saw her, a woman, pale skin, hollow eyes, standing in the mirror's reflection. But she wasn't in the room. She was only inside the mirror, watching, waiting, smiling. The room that wouldn't let him leave. Brian grabbed his bag and ran to the door, but when he pulled the handle, it wouldn't open. The room had locked itself. The lights flickered. The whispering grew louder. And in the mirror, she stepped closer, her mouth opened too wide. And then she whispered, "It's your turn." The endless hallway. Brian threw a chair at the window, but there was no outside, just blackness. He turned back to the door, and suddenly it was open. But the hallway wasn't the same. It was longer now. The wallpaper was peeling, the lights flickered, and at the far end, she was standing there, waiting, smiling. Brian ran, but the hallway stretched further. The doors were all numbered 217. No matter how far he ran, he was still outside his room. The final warning. Brian doesn't remember how he got out. He woke up in his car, parked on the side of the highway. The hotel? Gone. No building, no sign, no proof it ever existed. But in his pocket, a rusty key with a faded tag. Room 217. Some places don't let go. Brian tried to find the hotel again, asked the locals. No one had ever heard of it, no one had seen it. But late at night, when he closes his eyes, he still hears the whispering. And sometimes he wakes up to find his bedroom door unlocked, even though he never left it open. What's the truth? Some hotels don't just take guests, they keep them. So if you ever find yourself lost on the highway, and you see a hotel that wasn't there before, keep driving, because if you check in, you might never check out. What do you think? Have you ever stayed somewhere that felt wrong? Have you ever seen a hotel that shouldn't be there? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying stories. Until next time, sleep well.